Welcome to the Carlisle Local Regular School Board Meeting, Monday, November 26, 2018 at 6 p.m. And I would like to say that this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. This is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Mr. Bassett, would you call the roll?
Mrs. Lanehart.
Here.
Mr. Dunkman.
Here.
Mr. Jewell.
Here.
Mrs. McIntosh.
Here.
And Mr. Moore.
Here.
Thank you. Would everyone please rise and join me in the pledge?
I know.
Oh, yeah. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, we will move to student and program recognition. Mr. Hook.
Thank you, Mrs. Lanehart. I've got our head boys soccer coach, Mr. Brian Sprandel, here to acknowledge one of our players who's probably playing basketball right at the moment. So, but I'm going to turn the stage over to you, Brian.
Well, good evening. It's been my pleasure to have the boys varsity soccer job the last 2 seasons. And our goalkeeper, Logan Gross, senior this year, has played all 4 years through, the first 2 years with Coach Steckel, and then the last 2 years with myself as the head coach. And Logan is an outstanding goalkeeper, and even though our record hasn't been amazing, it would be significantly worse if he wasn't back there behind us. And his accomplishments are almost somewhat of a backhanded compliment to our team, I think. Last season as a junior, he was the #1 goalkeeper in the state of Ohio based off of saves in the season with over 300 saves. And adding that to his freshman and sophomore years, and then this year having another 200 and some saves, he ended up top 10 in the state of Ohio, and that's across all divisions, not just our division, Division II, that we play in. So Logan's an outstanding goalkeeper, and I appreciate the board and Mr. Augustine recognizing Logan for his accomplishments as a phenomenal goalkeeper, not only for our team, but in the upcoming years as he looks to further his education and soccer playing days at the next level, at the college level. So just want to recognize Logan for his accomplishments. Like I said, it's a little backhanded compliment to our defense as a team, but on his side of things, he does an outstanding job for us. And the last 2 years that I've had the opportunity to coach him, just an outstanding player for what he's able to accomplish on the field is quite amazing. So I appreciate the time, and I will let Logan know. And as Mr. Hook said, he is in the middle of a basketball game now, so he's a busy guy. So I thank you for your time and appreciate the recognition. I'll let Logan know.
And our congratulations to Logan as well. I think it's outstanding, and we're excited to see the next chapter for him. So, moving on, we have a little food service update from Mrs. French.
Good evening. Everything's going really well. It was a good year last year for us, and this year seems to be doing as well. We had a great Grandparents' Day. We had more grandparents than we did last year, and Thanksgiving was amazing. It all went really smooth. Got lots of compliments on that. I was a little nervous going into this school year because we lost Head Start. That was 58 meals a day that we're losing in our revenue. So I got busy thinking, and we lost somebody at the high school. So in talking with Dan and doing some brainstorming, we decided to share a spot, one of our positions, and because we needed a person at the high school. So I have 2 people sharing a position between Alden Brown and the high school, and at the moment that seems to be working out really well. I don't think as we go into the new school we'll need all the staff we have, and so this is a perfect time to, without hurting anybody and keeping everybody's jobs, kind of start moving in that direction. So But yeah, that 58, you know, when you start messing with those lunch numbers, that gets a little bit troubling for the finances. But we seem to be holding our own and doing well. Trying to keep our equipment running for the next 2 years, year and a half now, is a challenge. We've got a combi oven at the high school that she's just struggling with, but they're working on it. We're at the mercy of the repairman at this point, but we're doing what we can do. So thank you.
Outstanding. And that concludes our student recognition and program recognition.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move to visitors' comments. If anybody wants to come to the podium and say anything, now's the time. Well, seeing none, we will move to the treasurer's report. Mr. Bassel.
Thank you, Mrs. Lainhart. November is not too much for the treasurer's report, so I guess that's good news for us. First, I need an approval for our minutes from the last regular scheduled meeting, which was October 22nd.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Moore. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. McIntosh. If there's no questions, you may call the roll.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh,
Yes.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman,
Yes.
and Mrs. Lainhart.
Yes, thank you. Motion carried.
Next is the financial report, which was part of your packet. No real surprises. One of the things that we just finished up right now was builder's risk insurance, which was something that I had overlooked as far as budgeting for this year. Sorry. We have the money available to do so, and obviously we just put it into place, but that was one of the things, as far as a budgeted item, I did not have in place previously. So that's a little bit of a change. And then the other slight change is the new printers that are going in the different buildings, which I spoke a little bit before, a couple meetings ago. That was something different this year that I had not originally planned for, but we still have the money to be able to do so. Other than that, no surprises, just moving along, not paying as many bills as we were as the startup of the year, but you know, just making it work.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions? If not, you may call the roll.
I need a first and a
Or,
second.
I mean, I need it first. Sorry, I need a motion. Sorry. I'm ready to get this
I'll
party
second.
started. Was it by Mrs. McIntosh?
What?
You're a second.
I'm a second.
Oh, you're a second.
It was Bill was the first.
All right.
Can I call the roll?
Mr. Jewell makes a motion.
Just sounded like
Mrs. McIntosh seconds. May we have a roll call?
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh,
Yes.
Mrs. Lainhart,
Yes,
Mr. Dunkman,
Yes.
and Mr. Moore.
Yes.
thank you. Motion carried.
And then lastly, we have a donation from the Carlisle Drama Club, or to our drama club from the Theatrical Boosters Club, to be approved by the board.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Moore. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dunkman. If there's no questions, you may call the roll.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman,
Yes.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mrs. Lainhart,
Yes,
and Mrs. McIntosh.
Yes.
thank you. Motion carried.
That is my report for the month. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. At this time, we'll move to the superintendent's report. Mr. Hope.
Thank you, Mrs. Lainhart. You heard Gail mention about trying to get the kitchen equipment to limp through the next 2 years. That's really not an exaggeration. Some of them we have to work on quite a bit, but part of the new construction is new kitchen equipment. That is part of the process going in and moving forward. So there'll be some areas that we are limping as we get to the end of the life cycle of some of the equipment that we're dealing with. So I appreciate that, so thank you. From a construction standpoint, we got word that the construction trailer will be moving in. That's going to be kind of like their office on the site. It's really a trailer. They want to know where it's going to be. It's going to actually be right up against the roadway that goes to the baseball field, where if you've seen where the fences are, it's gonna be right up adjacent to the ticket booth. So you're gonna see that come in, you're gonna see all starting equipment. We have approval at all levels for the early site package, so you will start seeing things change. A lot of it, the early site package deals with rerouting utilities that would normally run underneath the building. They have to go around the lines. So you're gonna see that. You'll see some of the mounds, like against this building, get removed. So God knows what we'll find when those get moved. I just pray there's not Indian bones in it or something. So if there is, I just don't tell me. I don't wanna hear it. So, but some of this has to be pulled back because this fence along this side is gonna get pushed up. Now, you'll still be able to egress in an emergency. We'll still be able to egress and get out. You just won't have the room that there is right at the moment. So that fence gets tightened in as they get a little closer. So that's all scheduled to happen. I think a little bit of it's weather related, but I know the trailer, they just texted me today. Trailers have been ordered and it's on its way. So I don't know where they bring it from. Some company that the construction manager has. So I would imagine sometime within today, within the next 2-week time frame, you're gonna see the fences actually get tightened down in terms of, right now you can go anywhere you wanna go, pretty much. That's gonna change, so whenever the trailer gets in there, I'm assuming that's when they're also gonna start bringing in some equipment. So they have to have that in there, because that's where they'll actually be on site for the next year and a half, 2 years. So it's rolling. The last little hurdle was at the state, and that was cleared over last week. And so full steam ahead. Here we go. Hang on. Careful what you wish for. The mud's gonna start flying. So that's a good thing. It's a good thing. So any questions about where we're at right now with the construction? I think, I know people have said, well, maybe it's gonna be a little difficult. Maybe it's gonna be, hard to get it done. But I do know once they get that thing going, especially once they start coming up out of the ground, it doesn't slow down. It rolls. It starts moving pretty quick. The construction site manager that actually will run it day to day said that we'll still be on schedule. So we'll see. Let's go. So that's where we're at. So that kind of concludes my non-action items. Moving to our action items, we have a second reading for those policies listed in item B1A. Also the first reading for policy 4162, there was a typo in alcohol percentage allowable kind of thing, and we made that adjustment, so that should be in the updated one. And so it's a first reading for that one. We'll bring it back for the second reading next time and finish that one as well. So I need approval for B1A and B.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Moore, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jewell. If there's no questions, you may call the roll.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mrs. Lainhart,
Yes,
Mr. Dunkman,
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh.
Yes.
thank you, motion carried.
Item B2, classified employment. I need approvals for A, B, and C as listed.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Jewell, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Dunkman. If there's no questions, you may call the roll.
I think it's Mr. Moore.
Was it Mr. Moore? Okay,
Or, I don't know.
Who's the
Okay.
guy?
but we'll do, Jewell for the motion and Moore for the second.
Got it.
Okay. If there's no questions, you may call the roll.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mrs. Lainhart,
Yes,
Mrs. McIntosh,
Yes.
and Mr. Dunkman.
Yes.
thank you, motion carried.
My final board action on B 3A is with sadness. I ask for approval for item A, Mike Brown as our head football coach. I do want to publicly say it certainly was not because of his record. Mike Brown has done a remarkable job with our students, a very solid role model for our kids. I think for personal reasons, we've had lots of discussions, and I think he wants to step back. It's not like he's jumping to go elsewhere. He's a solid teacher. Like I said, just a good person for our kids. So it's with sadness I ask for approval for his resignation.
All right, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. McIntosh, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Jewell. If there's no questions, you may call the roll.
Mrs. McIntosh,
Yes.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mr. Dunkman,
With great reluctance, yes.
Mrs. Lainhart,
Yes,
and Mr. Moore.
Yes.
thank you, motion carried.
And that concludes my action items for tonight.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move to Board of Education. Do we have a legislative report, Mr. Moore?
With the elections earlier this month, I haven't seen a whole lot of movement or action on any new legislation out of Columbus.
Okay,
The
thank
only thing
you.
I would add to that is we are now moving into the lame duck session. I would expect a flurry of attachments to bills that were pending the November 8th election. And much of it has to do with graduation requirements for this year's seniors and next year's seniors. I know they wait to the last minute. What do? You know, they got the final votes. So my guess is there's going to be some reprieve from some of there'll be some alternative pathways to graduation.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know what it is, because right now you've got the State Board of Education telling us one thing, and then you've got the legislature telling you another thing. And ultimately, the legislature has
It's,
lawmaking authority. So we're in that limbo state. But I do, from everything that I've heard from Senator Laynard, who is the head of the Senate Education Committee, there is some action coming quickly. So
There's been a lot of bickering back and forth over a lot of those different regulations at this point in time. But again, no solid movement on any of them. But as Larry said, there's a lot of push to finalize some things in a hurry, which usually will mean that come January, when new Congress and new elected officials get sworn in, will mean revisiting anything that was done and approved between now and the end of the year. So even the stuff that they get done right now is most likely subject to change come January.
Thank you. I do not have a CTC report this month, so we will move to old business. Do we have any old business to discuss? Any new business?
I have one thing.
Okay.
Just wanted to take a moment to thank Carlisle Manor. At Halloween time, we had that bad weather, so it worked out really good, but they invited a lot of the kids from Alden Brown, and I'm not sure about Grigsby, to come through and do trick-or-treating within Carlisle Manor. I think this is not the first year they've done it, but they said they had more kids than what they've ever had, ran out of candy a couple times, and the old folks that are there just absolutely loved it. So I thank Carlisle Manor, and it was a good opportunity for the kids to see, some of the older folks and just see that they're still with it and just can't move around as fast. So
Thank you. At this time, we need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of personnel with no action to follow. Do I have a motion?
so moved.
Motion by Mr. Dunkman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Jewell. You may call the roll.
Mr. Dunkman,
Yes.
Mr. Jewell,
Yes.
Mrs. McIntosh,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
and Mrs. Lainhart.
Thank you.
Assignment is 622.